Welcome to the Pastor to Pioneer podcast. Well, I don't know why I just did it a long welcome. Maybe because I'm like super excited today for today's guests. I'm just extra amped up. Today we have Aaron and Emily Brown. And I mean, of course I love all the guests that we have on the podcast, but I've just know you guys in a unique way because we are in the same area together. We both worked for the same kind of parent church organization, though part of different campuses for a while. And so I just have known you guys for a long time. And so it's always fun when it's people I know and know well that I get to walk with them through this journey of Pastor to Pioneer. And so Aaron and Emily are also in West Michigan. They have 4 lovely kids, and Aaron and Emily recently transitioned out of the prevailing model of the church into microchurches. And so I'm excited for them to be on the podcast today and share their story. Aaron and Emily, welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to be here, Brenton. Thanks for the invitation.
Emily, I'm so glad that you said yes. A lot of times the spouse is like, nah, I'm good. I'll pass on the podcast. And so I was so glad when you're like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. It's awesome.
It's a step of faith for sure.
I just think, this journey, which I'm excited for you guys to share about, it's like, it's great to hear Aaron's perspective, but your perspective is going to be a little different. And I just think will be really valuable to our listeners to get your perspective on the journey as well. And so it's going to be great.
Thanks.
Before we dive into some of the transition story from pastor to pioneer, I'd love to hear just a brief snapshot from both you guys. Like, how did you guys come to know the Lord?
Yeah, that's great. We grew up in homes that were of faith background. We went to the same church in middle school and high school. We met.
Middle school.
So for me, like early faith experience in Sunday school when I was like 4 or 5. Gave my life to Jesus at summer camp when I was 12. Kind of gave my career to Jesus when I was 17 at a youth conference. So always been in, the church and just kind of in my life.
Yeah. I was raised by passionate Jesus followers, and they just really exemplified like living the kingdom. And so I remember loving Jesus from a really young age. And when I met Aaron Brown, we both in junior high Sunday school both said we wanted to be missionaries. And I was like, sign me up.
Later.
Here we are like 30 years later.
So we obviously in middle school together. When did you guys start dating? Did you start dating in middle school or did that come around later?
In high school.
Yeah, she's a senior, graduating probably. And I was a junior. She's a little older than me.
Okay.
And then, into college and dated for 4 years and got married.
Yeah.
Love it. Before you guys got into traditional pastoral work, if I remember your story correctly, you guys did some camp ministry. Is that right? Some other nonprofit work? What was that?
Yeah, I was really passionate about youth ministry and camp ministry. So I went to Cornerstone University in Grand Rapids. And our first gig out of college was youth camp, Camp Beach Point in Allegan, working with kids from urban city centers. So that was kind of our foray into like professional ministry. Still, really involved with different churches and two church plants, even before we were in the church as paid staff, just really involved in our local churches.
Love it. So then you guys transitioned into traditional church ministry, right? That's when you came on staff at the church organization I was a part of at the time. How did you guys decide to make that transition into a more traditional church setting?
Well, at that time, we had raised 3 of our 4 kids in community living at a camp. So we were like, night and day with people all the time. And after our 3rd kid came, we're like, we think we might need a little different lifestyle. So yeah, when the church position came up, his dad was, he mentored some pastors. And my dad would fill in pulpit, different places. So I feel like we always had a passion for churches.
Yeah. And so this position came open and some of my friends were, joining that church, and I was passionate about missions, and the position was a missions pastor position. So it felt like a fit. and I wasn't working 70 to 80 hours a week and not seeing my family in the summer. So
Yeah.
it was a great synergy, a good connection. That was 2012 that we made that transition.
Awesome. So talk me through some of that journey at that church of just kind of like what was your guys' journey like in discovering the role of being pastor spouse, just being involved in the church in that way. How did that continue to grow and progress and what that looked like for the next decade or so?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun at first because it was like a lower level staff member, so I was just doing a lot of programming, a lot of volunteer work. As I became a more visible leader, the need to have uh, a more polished persona and a more professional way of being kind of became important. So I did the missions pastor thing for 3 years. Then they asked us to plant a campus and a community that we love. And so I was like, yeah, that's a fit. We were already living here. Feel like the Lord had called us to bring His good news of love and reconciliation to our neighborhoods anyway. And so it just felt like a good fit. So yeah, it was an interesting journey of becoming a community's pastor because I'd always been a leader, a director, whatever. But it came with new kind of expectations, new levels of leadership over the 13 years that we did it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You talk about those new layers of expectation and things like that. Um, are you saying that like where did that expectation come from? Like from the people in the church that you planted, from the church, the larger church you were a part of? Like what? Because it wasn't a multi-site's not the right way of looking at this, right? How would you describe the church setup that you were a part of?
Yeah, it was a hybrid. I mean, it's one nonprofit organization with one kind of elder board of directors, but each church had their own name, but they're all responsible to one pastor who reported to the board. So, in one way, it felt like its own individual church. In another way, it was very much a multi-site. There were campuses. In the beginning, when we were planting, it was kind of wild frontier, wild west. Like no one knew how to do it, and so. There were some ideas, but no one on our team had ever done it like this. So there was a lot of trust put in us. Our local church was super supportive. It felt like we were in the trenches together. But as things grew, there was this expectation that the, ragtag group of church planners would conform to a little bit more of the corporate model of the main campus, the original location. And so probably, 6, 8 years in, we bought a building and the expectations kind of shifted from like, all right, you're this apostolic, mobile, cutting edge church planter role to now, the teaching needs to be more polished, the worship needs to be more polished, the production needs to be such that you're growing the church by numbers, you're growing the church financially. We're kind of, keeping people satisfied. We're meeting their needs. So they bring their friends. So it's comfortable. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But it shifted. It went from church planting and mission work to now there needs to be different spiritual gifts. There needs to be a teacher. Needs to be more of a speaker. So that's kind of how things shifted
Interesting.
as we went through. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
So before you guys had bought the building, where were you meeting?
Yeah, we were mobile. We were in 3 or 4 different locations. We ended up being at a youth camp for 2 or 3 years. And it was just a really good vibe. It was a lot of outdoors. It was close to the community that we serve. And then COVID hit, and that camp was in some weird stuff. And a large facility became available, and we moved into that. And that was, for us, that was kind of like, that felt like the beginning of the end. That was a step toward the more production oriented, more asset management, more like centralized church ministry where a lot of your time and energy goes into caring for the facility and the production of the service. And we didn't have a lot of time anymore to do relational discipleship, to be with people
Mm,
in the community. Toward
Mm.
the end there, I counted my meetings once, and on my low weeks, I was at like 14 meetings a week on hour plus meetings. And on my high weeks, I was like 20 plus. And just with all of the different things we're trying to manage of being a multi-campus church, it just got to a point where it wasn't sustainable for us, and we weren't doing the things that we felt called to do.
So when you say that many meetings, are you talking like meetings with people within the church? Are you talking like meetings just with like the main campus or with your team? Like what when you say meetings, what do you mean by that?
That's mostly interstaff meetings and leadership teams from both the larger group, but also the local church. Very few of those meetings were pastoral care or coaching or counseling or discipleship oriented. That was all just to keep the kind of the program and the production moving. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. How, do- how many hours a week did you say that you had those kind of meetings?
Yeah, 15 to 20 average. And then some weeks it was more. I want to, at this point, I want to be careful. Like, I don't want to dog the
Sure,
church, right? We
sure,
believe
sure, sure.
strongly that God uses every expression of church. He was faithful to use, Constantinianism to spread the gospel, even though we kind of don't like how that ended up. He used
Sure.
faithful to the Catholic Church. He uses all denominations, all forms. But as we were going through that, we were a little bit like, this isn't what we signed up for. And we're not
Yeah.
doing the things that God's created us to do. So for us, I think in that last couple of years, we really started to get a personal hunger for the
Yeah.
more, right? What does discipleship look like? What does the leadership of the
That's
Spirit look like? So this is just our story. And we want to bless that church. We want
no,
to support all
no, of
churches.
course.
But
No,
for us,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
like,
great,
this is
yeah,
not,
great
this doesn't fit.
great people at that church. I just think what that reveals is if you're going to go that route, and a lot of people do, of a very corporate structure, it needs to look this certain way, a lot of programming. You can definitely choose to do that, and the Lord does work in that, but it just requires a lot of resources, including people's times and meetings to make that thing happen. And it makes sense if you're like, wait a minute, fine if you guys are going to go that route, but that's not our hearts, and just not what we had signed up for. I'm curious for you, Emily, were you noticing some of this shift in your own heart or even in Aaron's heart during this period of time as well?
Yeah, it's funny because I hadn't thought back to our journey, like to the way beginning of our ministry journey. And I feel like the sweetest times for our family were probably the hardest years for the church because we
Wow.
had people in our home all the time. We had to move campuses. We were managing some big tensions when we first planted the church, but we were so close to people and, um, they just knew us. And so I feel like it started to get hard probably the last couple of years we were there. Um, when we, I think it's when the Lord was making clear to us that maybe what we were designed for in ministry wasn't what it was looking like currently.
Yeah. What did those conversations look like, or what did that discernment look like for you guys? Because what I know about you both is um you 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 have high convictions, highly like truth justice oriented, like we want to do what's right and live into strong convictions. But on the other side, you're just very people focused, you're very loyal, you're very like wanting to make it work. And I would imagine that those two things would clash or go like in the midst of this process. So what did that process look like of discerning what is God asking us to do, and is it here at this church?
Yeah. We talked a lot. We prayed a lot.
Lots of prayer.
We looked at other jobs. We interviewed other places, and it just never felt like we were called to anything. It felt like we were running from something. So God didn't release us from our original calling. Our original calling was this community, to make our
Mm,
lives in this place where I have family roots, where we have common experience. Like my grandparents met here. That's why I exist, because of this beach and people cruising on the weekends. So like God's call never went away, and there wasn't a clear path to relieve the tension. So we just hung in there. And around 24, I took a sabbatical in 23 and took a few
Mm,
months off and really just started to reconcile who I was and what the Lord was calling me to, and kind of laid down my fear of people's approval, and just started saying the things
mm,
I needed to say and being the person I needed to be. Um, and in that time, we kind of gave up this journey of pleasing people and just decided to start saying what the Spirit had us to say. And that's kind of what led to our transition. Is it just wasn't a fit anymore,
Mhm.
and I wasn't pretending like it was anymore. So we started to just, lead the way we thought we needed to lead, and that just wasn't a fit with the system.
So if I hear you saying you just were more not that you were not honest before, you're showing more of your hand maybe like they're really trying to get you more into what they feel like success was going to look like and what success of this role looked like of certain you'd mentioned earlier certain way of teaching, certain way of leading, certain persona, certain way of doing it. It sounds like then you just kind of got the point of being more honest of like, yeah, that's not us. That's not really what we're called to. That just being is that am I hearing that right?
Absolutely. And toward the end, it was like, yeah, we all kind of agreed, you know. And so when we left, we were asked to leave, but when we left, there was this huge weight off. We were a little scared because we didn't choose it, but the Lord really gave us a peace as we moved through that. He kind of renewed our calling to this community. We had to step out in faith that He was going to provide. And as we started to be true to ourselves and also to what the Spirit was calling us to do and how He was calling us to do our ministry, um, uh, we just felt a huge peace about that. And so it was difficult to separate from the community that we've been a part of. Um, but like we really just felt like, early on at the church that we were a part of, things were mission oriented and it fit our gift set. And then toward the end, it was kind of like we're not solving problems like a faith family, like with biblical principles. We're solving problems like an organization, like a nonprofit, like a business. And even the way that we were asked to leave, it felt a lot more like a corporate move
Mm,
than a community of faith. And so that was kind of the exclamation point for us. So like, yeah, it's okay. This isn't a fit. It's okay
Mhm.
that our skills and gifts don't fit here anymore. That the synergy isn't there. And there's still a huge sense of loss because we had told the people for 9 years we're a family,
Mhm.
but it's difficult to be a family member when you're a paid staff member and your belonging in the organization has to do with your performance and your synergy with your supervisor. And so we got to this point where my performance wasn't matching up to my career and my synergy with my supervisor wasn't working. And now we're not family members anymore. So there's a loss there, but that's just that's our journey.
Mhm.
So
yeah, it's so interesting, and that's why I'm so glad you guys agreed to do this for a number of reasons. But like a lot of people on this journey from pastor to pioneer, they think through it and they're like, we're gonna make this decision and we're gonna step away or we're gonna however we're gonna do it. And for you guys, when we'll get to in a minute, you had some stuff birthing in your heart for a while, but you leaving wasn't a choice. Your choice. It was a choice, just not yours. And, um, and so you guys then had to deal with just I know because we talked about this a lot, like just so many emotions and loss. What were those early days like of when you guys were done at that church before you even started dreaming about what was next? What were those days like?
Really hard. Really hard. It's almost like I'm gonna get teary talking about it. It's almost like
Mm,
when you are relieved that a family member isn't suffering anymore,
mm,
by passing away, but also you miss them and you're sad. So I
yeah.
feel like we felt that relief of like freedom to serve the Lord and follow the Spirit in whatever capacity He would lead next, because we didn't know next where He would lead, but He'd been putting that in our hearts for a couple of years that He had something else. Um, but also lots of grief.
yeah, grief and confusion, like, for 30 plus years, we'd been taught and we had taught others this is what the family of God is and this is how it works. And all of a sudden we're finding ourselves outside of that local
Mm,
community. And a lot of people just still loving us and caring for us and wanting us to be at services and wanting to include us in things. But it just didn't work. Like you can't stick around and be a part of the church when things ended the way that our thing ended.
Yeah. And I think we felt like the church needed us to not be there.
That's true.
Like
Yeah.
the people we love that were still there, like if they were going to move on, like
Yeah.
we had to not be there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So we purposed in our hearts to not do anything that would hinder the mission of the church or cause dissension. And so we were in a lot of pain. And in hindsight, we might not have done things perfectly, but we tried real hard to support and bless as we left. But also be honest with our story of like, yeah, this isn't our choice, and yeah, this does hurt. And so it took months and months and months to get to a point where we're like, we're okay, and this is okay, and the Lord's gonna be faithful and take us to whatever's next.
I understand, like, I'm incredibly biased, really walked with you guys in your perspective, but I'm just going to say this. I thought you guys navigated that incredibly well. You were very intentional to be gracious and speak kind things and not curse, but also you were honest. And I think you held that line really well. And which is, again, I think it's such a testimony to what God's been doing in you guys. Like, that's how you seek to live your lives in other areas of being honest, being truthful, being direct, being prophetic, while also being loving, being gracious, being kind, being humble. And I just like watched you guys do it in such an amazing way through that time and still through to today. So just like, I don't know, I want to say way to go. I thought you
Thank
guys
you.
crushed it.
Appreciate
thanks
that.
so much.
Means a lot.
We're still working through,
Yeah.
all the grief. As excited we are about what's happening right now. It's probably going to be a while.
Yeah.
Process.
I mean, there's the phases, right? You're in denial, and then you're angry, and then all acceptance, and then sometimes you kick back into other phases. But I mean, we're a year and a couple weeks out, and I honestly think the Lord protected us, and the Lord has guided us, and yeah, we're just grateful.
Yeah.
I don't know, this is just popping in my head. So I'm just going to ask it, Aaron, of just like, you and I both lost our dads young, right? Too young. Do you ever like just really miss him a lot in this season of like, dang it, I wish I could ask my dad these questions. I wish I could bounce these things off of him. I wish I could get his perspective in this really tough transition. Do you ever think about that in the midst of this?
Oh, absolutely. I think in the first 6 months especially, it's just like I'd be sitting there processing some stuff, and I'd just break into tears that I didn't have that person. I love him personally, but also just the fatherly role.
Yes.
There's all kinds of people who want to play that in my life, but only one guy who could in the way that he was meant to. And so, yeah, totally missed him. He was a pillar of the faith. He was in ministry his whole life. He handled it with grace and conviction and grit. And it's difficult. That bounces me back to like a big piece that was missing in our previous ministries was there wasn't spiritual mentorship or fatherhood in the families of churches that we were a part of in multiple churches. And that was a gaping hole because I didn't have my biological father either. So I had lots of managers, lots of coworkers, lots of wise believers who meant well. But it was always a corporate or supervisory or managerial relationship. And, one of the things that we've found moving into house church and micro church is spiritual mentorship again. And people who are spiritual parents and have no vested interest in our performance or how well we do or don't deliver the thing that we're here to do. And so there's been a lot of restoration in that. Honestly, there's been some redemption in that journey too.
Do you think, going back to something else you said with that, it's like, do you think it's possible to even have that spiritual parenting, spiritual mentoring in an environment where people are being paid for their roles?
I think it's possible. I can't do it. I mean, to talk in generalities is tough because like I've seen mega churches do awesome work and really relational governances and follow the Bible really closely and do things that micro and other types of church can't do. I mean, we've been a part a 5,000 member church, 2,000, 250, and now 12. Like all those
Yeah.
different levels of church, and each level can do different things well. But when people are paid and the metrics are expansion to measure your
Yeah.
role, it gets really tricky because even people, elders in the church or members in the church who want to spiritually mentor you, they have a vested interest in how well you perform, and that will never be a purely discipleship relationship.
And they might not even be thinking about them having event vested interest, but
Right.
but as a paid staff,
Yeah.
you don't forget like where your paycheck comes from. So
That's
Right.
right. I just have wondered that because I noticed not only my own journey, but a lot of other folks too. It's just like you kind of see that more clearly on the other side of like, wow, once you're paid for a role, a lot of our relationships become very transactional. And and again, I don't think it's anyone's fault specifically. I think the system kind of reinforces that, but it makes it hard to have that true familial relationship that you're talking about. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that insight. That's really good. I appreciate that.
And this might be a theological stretch, but like I think the Adam and Eve's original consequences of their sin for Adam, one was that his work would have toil. And I think when we make ministry and discipleship our careers, we kind of bring the curse of Adam into it unnecessarily. And now that like
Interesting.
we have disentangled that, we're co-vocational. So I have a day job and then I do church leadership and then micro church and discipleship out of the overflow of my passions. I feel a separation there. I feel like, yes, work's still hard, the grind's still real, but that doesn't carry over as directly into my faith community. And because I'm not a paid part of that family, I don't feel like I'm going to get downsized, and I don't feel like my performance is tied to my acceptance. And so, disentangling career from church family has been one of the best parts of this journey for us.
How freeing. I mean, that is so freeing to have that disentangled.
Right.
Incredible.
Yeah.
and this is the first time ever in our married life we've had that. I mean, 2 weeks after we got married, we went into professional ministry. Like we were missionaries raising support. So we've always had this like our job is how well we lead spiritually.
Yeah.
And so it's just so, it's such a different mindset to try to wrap our heads around and for us to see people for their value just as who they are as children of God and not as like, do they approve of us? Are they going to like support us financially? Like it frees up a lot of
Yeah.
blinders that we had on for
100%.
our own
Yeah, I'm
relationships.
not worried if they're going to get in the program or serve on the team or give financially. I'm not looking at outputs. I'm looking at the inputs of, are they listening to the Spirit? Are they reading the Word? Are the relationships healthy? Are they following Jesus? It's discipleship and relationship oriented. And I think there are churches that can do that well. But again, it's that tricky piece of what are the metrics? What's the scorecard? When the
That's right.
scorecard is growth oriented and expansion oriented, and we feel like we have to do something to help the Spirit accomplish the Great Commission, other than just listening and obeying our personal lives,
Totally.
it can get messy and it can get distracted.
Sometimes I've noticed, so even if the goal though is like, oh, it's not growth outward, but it's inner growth, it's spiritual transformation. If I still feel like I'm responsible for that in somebody else, I think I will. I've fallen into that same trap of like, okay, I gotta get you to move forward. I gotta get you to stop sinning. I gotta get you to grow in this area, and it's the same mindset, and uh, it just doesn't work out, So it's a trap. It really is a trap. You'd mentioned what you're doing now. You're working with a nonprofit and you're doing some microchurch stuff, and we'll get more into that. But I'm curious before we dive into the details of that, what did that discernment process look like of knowing what do we step into next?
It was tricky. I mean, immediately when I was done last April, we started applying at churches because that's what the resume said. And we have a passion for the church. We have a passion for the kingdom of God. But like the things that went, the interviews that didn't go well were frustrating. And then after a month or so, the interviews that did go well were frustrating. Like I almost got an offer at a pretty substantial church in West Michigan. And at that time, the clarity was just like, I don't want to do this again. And we were in talks with of multiple churches.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like I had to kind of put the mask on and play the role and cast the vision and use the lingo. And I was just like, this feels like performative. And it is because I'm trying to get a job. Um, so that kind of it gave us the ick a little bit. We're like, I don't know if we can do this for another 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and we really felt like God originally called us to this town.
Mm,
And so even when the stuff at our old church didn't work out, prayed and we felt like the Lord had not released us from this town. If anything, He gave us even more of a love with people in this town. So we were like begging God that we could stay here, but provide for our family.
yeah,
So that took a few months to figure out.
yeah.
We were starting to sweat it a little bit.
Yeah, we're interviewing a job in Florida, and it's like that takes us away from what we want. We're interviewing for a job in Hudsonville, that takes us away from what we want. And even Holland, which is about 25 minutes from our home, it's just not our community. And so we wanted to stay where we were at, keep our kids in our school, but then we're commuting to another community, and that was kind of where it clicked. We're interviewing for a church in Holland, and we're like, it's not going to work.
wow. So how did you then decide, okay, this is right. This is the right thing for us?
Yeah, the specifics of that situation is we fell in love with a faith community in Holland. It was a vineyard church, and we really felt that was the first time that a group of people had seen us for us. And we were interviewing there, but we felt like vineyard theology was the first time a denomination or a movement's theology had really made sense to us. And like a lot of things we already believed about the Spirit and the Word, about following the Spirit, about the gifts of the Spirit. And it was like this could be our home, this could be our tribe, but the local church itself just wasn't in our target of where the Lord had called us. So we were interviewing for that. We're trying to discern with them. They were super gracious. It was super uh, good. And then I just woke up one morning at like 3 a.m. with this check in my spirit of like, that's not it, but it is. And I was like, what do you mean, Lord? So I was praying. He's like, yes, Vineyard, no, that church. But you don't want us to move. So I started Googling, and this thing popped up called The Way Micro Churches in Grand Rapids. And it was a Vineyard associated group of micro churches. So I clicked it. And I'm like, I know that guy. I had met him a couple years earlier. He was in micro churches all over the Grand Rapids area and down in Florida. So I called him up that day. I was like, hey, can we get together? And we got together, we started chatting, and it was like the pieces the Lord had been putting on the table just kind of fit together. It was relational discipleship and mission. It was home based, but it was also in this tribe of theology and practice that was really resonating with us at that time.
Yeah, Carl's great. Carl's been on the podcast. It's been a while ago, but it was great. He shared his story on the podcast. I love that guy. He's just one of the most just joyful, encouraging people that I know.
Yeah.
He's such a
He's
great guy.
awesome. And we got to talking. I was like, I think the Lord wants us to do micro churches. I don't know how. And he's like, well, you could do your own thing, or you could just, join us and you could use our stuff. And then if the Lord ever calls you to do your own stuff, you could take all our content and use it. And he was just so open handed. Like there was no back end, there was no paywall, there was no corporate structure. I mean, he's got his ducks in a row as far as systems and boards and insurance, like all the things that protect people. But he uses the system to care for the family. He doesn't use the family to grow the system. And so we really fell in love with Carl and Anita and started hanging out with them. He started discipling me. He filled that role of spiritual father and mentor in my life. For the first time in a long time, I felt like this isn't connected to my performance or my career. This is just connected to who God's calling me to be as a person. He cares for me as a disciple and as a faith family member. And we didn't know how we were going to fund it at that point, but the Lord was like, this is it. And so we were immediately like, okay, do we fundraise again? What are we doing here? But those questions hadn't been answered yet, but it was just really clear we were supposed to journey with Carl for a season. That's been a year now. We're supposed to start a church in our home. And we've done that. And we're supposed to be available to help, the Lord make disciples however he wants through that kind of family connection.
Amazing. So what I mean, that's why I love watching you guys take this journey because it's like there's been a lot of unknowns along the way, a lot. But when something becomes somewhat clear and you feel like, all right, this is confirmation from the Lord, that's the step you take. And so I love that. You're like, I know it's the way. It was with Carl's. It's like, let's just start hanging with him. That's what we know. A lot of unknowns, but let's take a step with what we know. And then as you've done that, other stuff has become more clear. So how did you guys end up landing where you did of not fundraising full time to do that, but to work for the nonprofit and to do this on the side?
Yeah, we just, again, the fundraising, we didn't have a piece about it. It felt like we were marketing the work again, and we are connecting, our livelihood to the results. So we were just applying for jobs. It was really frustrating. We kind of hooked up with the way in May, maybe it was, and nothing was clicking for work. I went on a missions trip. I just felt the Lord say, "Hey, put everything down for the week. Just pray." Me and one of my sons went on a missions trip, and I was just praying and letting the Lord work through that and through the people around us. I was expecting like this light in the sky or this revelation at some point. Awesome experience, great missions trip. But then we left, and on the way home, I was like, I didn't get it. I didn't get the revelation I was waiting for. But then we're sitting in the airport on the way home in June, and I got a call from a friend I had worked with before. And she said, I'm hiring. I'd love you to consider the position. And as soon as you're back, give me a call. And it was like, the Lord's, right on time when he needs to be. It was a little bit of a wink. He's like, I know what you're expecting. See how I didn't give it to you, but I also did? That's because I'm in control. And I was like, okay. So I got home and interviewed, and that nonprofit, 7x7 Life Recovery, was a great fit. It's a justice-oriented organization doing really cool work. It built on some of the skills and experiences I'd had for my career and for my work, but it also freed me to pursue, discipleship in a more micro home-based organization. So, our way. Yeah.
Emily, did you notice a change in Aaron at all? Or yeah, I guess that's in how he went about his day and just him in general when he took a job outside of the church, a prevailing model, where he was able to keep those worlds separate. Did you notice a change in him or even in your family?
Yes, I noticed right from the get-go, like the first few months when we had our severance package and we were just seeking the Lord and looking for jobs. I noticed that he felt this freedom to listen to the Lord just for the Lord's voice, not to write any kind of sermon or do anything productive with it, but just listen to the Lord's voice. And yeah, so I saw him having more rhythms like that in his life. And then there is just this relief to be able to go to a job that's like 9 to 5 using the skills that the Lord has given him, but then coming back and not feeling like at any moment, our life or our family could be called into ministry or something again. I don't know if this is being very clear, but it was just very
Oh,
relieving.
100% it is. Yeah. Yeah, I think that resonates with so many of our listeners, of just that gift that is. You don't realize it until you're outside of it. Of just like, wow, this really shifts a lot of all those things that you're saying. I think that's spot on. Even the one you just said, like, it's so subtle when your relationship with the Lord changes from like, I'm going to Him to get something, to get a sermon, to get insights on a decision I have to make. It's like I just enjoy being with the Lord. Like that is a major shift that a lot of times we don't think about. Spot on. So give me a snapshot of what is what does it look like now? What does church look like now? What does ministry look like now? What does that side of life look like for you guys?
Well, our church, we do house church. It's just us and 2 other families, three other families after the summer, because they're busy with something this summer. But yeah, it's just probably 14 people total that meet at our house every Sunday, and we eat brunch together. And our kids all go to the same school, and we all live in the same town, and we see each other throughout the week quite a bit. Um, and then Aaron goes to his job 9 to 5, basically, and we are just trying to build relationships with people in town in a way that is just organic and slow and real. And yeah, what would you say?
I think, and like we're asking different questions every week instead of asking, what can I say that will change people's lives? Or what can we sing that will engage people? Or, how can we get people involved? The questions are like, who wants to bring what for breakfast? And then what passage are we reading? And what's the Lord saying to us through this? And what are we going to do about it? And, our four core values are kind of like, our relationship with Jesus through worship, our relationship with the Bible through study and discovery, our relationship with each other as a church family, and our relationship with our community. And it's like those things really do dominate our schedule and our conversations. We're not managing systems or assets. We're just like doing discipleship, and it's fun, and it's relational, and we do that as a church. And then I get to kind of, coach other people who want to do that. So we led a kind of an immersion experience in our home last fall and had between 8 and 12 people here for 6 weeks, just practicing and showing and doing. And it wasn't a seminar. It was like, hey, this is how we could do this. And we'll do that again this summer, probably, or next fall. But we just get to be practitioners, and we get to be coaches and supporters for anybody who wants to try this. And it's a lot of fun.
And it's so cool because we take turns for house church meeting at each other's houses.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we just show up with a bowl of fruit, and then we do church because somebody else leads us through the passages. So it's not like we have to prepare or perform every week. It's like we get to be fed and led by other people who then we like take turns with each other, and they hear from the Spirit. We don't have to be talking the whole time, and it's great.
and that has been everything for two big reasons. One, no one person's gifts are more important than the other people's. Yeah. Like, I have some leadership gifts, I have some teaching gifts, that's fine. But like, it's not built around me. If I'm not there, it can still happen. Everybody's using their spiritual gifts. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is everybody's talking. Like, they're asking the Lord what he's saying to them, and they're sharing their thoughts. We're praying for each other. We're sharing prayer requests. Like it's not just going in one ear and out the other. It's settling into their heads and their hearts, and we get to talk about it next week. And if the Lord's doing something different in somebody's life, we can move the focus of the thing because he's the head of the church. I'm not. He's the only head of the church, and he's the one leading it. Sure, we can prepare and we can have some direction of where we're going. We can have some intentionality, but in the moment, if the Spirit does something different or if somebody has a question, we can adjust, and we're actually doing discipleship live as we're doing church. We don't have to do church, and then do discipleship later in another program. So we like it. You can tell we're biased.
I love it. How has this transition impacted your kids? What's this transition been like for them?
Well, it's been hard, and it's still hard. Like we were talking about, this was our life. All of their cognitive memory, they knew big church, and organized church. So we definitely are still grieving different parts of the loss of that. But we hope that they see through the separation and the struggle that Jesus is faithful and his church is alive and active in all these different places. It doesn't just have to look like the church they've always known. It can also look like churches and homes, or wherever, whether it's big church or little church or whatever. What would you say?
Yeah, we've always been, like, in theory, open to our kids trying other churches and doing their own thing for spiritual development when it's time. But like, this kind of forced the conversation. Like, they have to ask some questions of like, does discussional church in our living room meet my needs? Mm-hmm. And we're seeing for a couple of our kids, it really does. And it's really healthy for them. For the other couple of kids, like they're attending different youth groups, and they're asking different questions. One of our kids still goes to the youth group at the church that we were a part of. And we bless that because we believe that we're all still family. It's one big extended family. And so it's just it's affecting them, And our role isn't to control it, it's to coach it, and it's to support it, and it's to pray for them. And yeah.
I just think the way you guys have navigated with your kids has been so honest, so gracious, but so intentional. And um, it's one of the biggest questions I get is like, how's this going to impact my kids? What about my kids? And I just think the reality of like, yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard. And here's how we've helped navigate that with them. I think is such important insight for a lot of those others that are on this journey too. It's awesome.
The biggest blessing in it is that they're a part of our conversations, though. We don't do separate children's church. Like, they're wrestling with the scripture. A couple months in, one of the other families that joined us, one of their sons hadn't said anything for 2 months. And all of a sudden we were praying, and I was like, who wants to pray over this request? And one of the teenage boys was like, I will. And he put his hands on the person to start praying for him, and it was like mind blowing. We told his parents, and they're like, because it's become normal. He's watching people do it, and he's engaging.
Yeah.
And even our kids, like, it's becoming normal to read the Bible out loud, to pray out loud, to ask questions, to lay hands on people and pray for miracles. Like, we're doing all the stuff of the New Testament, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. Even though there's tensions to navigate and there's coaching to be done, I'm so grateful.
I love it. Was it a hard shift for you? I remember some of those early conversations where you're like, I would get a network here and have all these house churches connected, balancing that long-term vision of what this could be to just being faithful with what's in front of you and starting small.
Yeah, it was a mind shift. And that's why I'm so thankful for my job, because I can pour my creativity and my energy into my day job and let the Spirit lead the church. And He'll tell me when I need to redirect energy. Because if I was raised in support, if we were doing this full time, I wouldn't be focused on people. I'd be focused on building the system.
Yeah.
And so I knew that in my head when this all started, but I don't know if the muscle memory of organizational growth and leading a nonprofit, if that would have trumped what I knew to be true. But thankfully, I mean, the Lord knew, like, we need to be co-vocational. And so I can use my gifts at work, and then He's in control of the church, and it's going to go where He wants it to go. And we're just faithful stewards of that.
I love it.
But I'll tell you, it is really hard to, like, old habits die hard.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
like meeting for church in a home, I still find myself asking, do they like this song? Like, nobody's talking right now. Maybe I should talk, or they hate it. Like, we just, these performative, like, thinking that we need to control the outcome, all of this is so hard to let go of. But it's just a continual reminder, like, it's the Spirit that's working.
Yeah.
And His word does not return void. So we will just continue to be faithful in meeting together, and He will do what He wants.
Yeah.
Come on. That's fire. What does this look like in the community? You've alluded to that. You mentioned a little bit, like just trying to be faithful in your community. Like, how is that shifted? How's your relationship with the community and the people in your community shifted now that you're just a dude that has a job and not a pastor in town?
You want to go or you want me to go? I can start.
You go.
So one of the saddest statistics I read a few years ago was the two most distrusted careers in America were like salesperson and clergy. And it was like, I don't know if that's still true, but I was like, there is such a skepticism in the organized church, and in post-Christian America, which is where we kind of live, is real. Like, everybody thinks you have an agenda, and we do, but they think it's self-serving. They think it's anti their own health and growth. It's like, when we stepped away from that, it's like it blew open doors of relationship and respect and engagement, because we stayed, because this was our community. We weren't just here to colonize it for our religion. We were here to bless it. And all of a sudden, I even, with a lot of the friendships I've built with people who are not of faith, wouldn't call themselves Christians, they're open to the conversations. They want to know about the hope we have. They want to know about how our faith impacts our lives, because it looks different than what they expected. And so in this community, which is very post-Christian, very post-church, very church skeptical, we've got a lot of open doors because of it. Would you say that?
I feel like I have had so many spiritual conversations with people who have checked in on me to see how we are.
Yeah.
Because we were, it's a small town. Everybody knows that we are the family that got let go from the church. And I think they were expecting us to leave because they probably figured, we're in ministry, we're going to move somewhere else and be in ministry. And we were able to tell them, like, we love this town and we love Jesus and we're here. And people, yeah, they've asked me, like, what are we doing for church now? So I talk about how we're meeting in a home, but we hope that our old church is blessed and all these things. People have started to come up and ask me and talk to me more about spiritual stuff. I think maybe because we're not in professional ministry anymore, they're like,
Amazing.
you're still here and you still love God, but it's not your job. And it's interesting.
Yeah, it's like it tore down walls and we're safe to talk to now. And for a lot of people, and it's like, okay, we're down. Again, I was a reluctant pastor. I never felt like that was God's call in my life. We've always felt like we just want to faithfully serve and tear down walls between people and Jesus. And for the
Mhm.
season that church planning was a part of that, great. For this season where, being co-vocational is a part of that, great. I'm fine. Anything we need to do to fully embody God's love and his restoration, his reconciliation for our community, and then be free to say what we need to say about how Christianity can and should operate in the world, like that freedom is just so important to us. And we're so
Mm. I think, Emily, you're in such a unique position, just, working at the coffee shop in town, of the way that you've planted yourself there as a way to be present and a way to get to know the community and have these conversations. I just love even the intentionality behind that, um, that you've chosen to live. It's just incredible.
It's been such a blessing. As I'm here longer, I see how much God loves these people and I love these people and they love me, which is a blessing that I'm reaping, I think, because we stayed. And now I think people have embraced us as their own. It takes a while in a small town to become a local, and it's been great.
I I just love where you guys are at. I love the journey you've been on. I love that I've gotten to be a part of it and just your faithfulness. And the thing that I've been so encouraged by you both in this whole thing is it's been way bigger than ministry or a job or just like big career changes. I have watched you both allow the Lord to transform you in this process. I watched the Lord transform you from the inside out, bring healing where he needs to bring healing, growth where he needs to bring growth, encouragement where there's encouragement. Like you just have let him do that and go into the hard places in this process rather than like, well, I just got to figure out what's next, or let's just get busy with ministry. And like you haven't wasted the opportunity that God's given you and invited you into growth and transformation in a really hard season. It's been really hard, I know. So I just want to say way to go, guys. It's been awesome to watch you do it.
thank
Thank
you. We
you.
appreciate that. And I mean, you journeying with us has been a lot to us. Like the support, the friendship, the coaching, like somebody who's been there before makes all the difference. And that's the discipleship journey, right? There's always somebody 2 steps in front of us and 2 steps behind us. And that's what the family of God should be doing. So thanks for your part.
Heck yeah. So many calls Michelle and I were on with you guys. It was like, oh yeah, yeah. Yep, we've been there. Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I felt that. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, it'll get
Yeah.
better. Oh, you won't be there forever.
Yeah. And
And
we just don't feel crazy because of that. It's so helpful to be like, oh, this is normal. This is just a part of this journey of kind of moving back toward what we feel passionate about and called to. So thank you.
totally. I'm curious as we wrap up, anything that's on your heart for our listeners as you are, reflecting on the journey that God's had you on and where you're at, anything that you feel like you want to share to our listeners.
I think the call to be in faith community is just so important. And when we find ourselves in situations where we have church hurt or we're we're trying to figure out how to do it in a way that's true to who we are, what God's calling us to, it's tempting to walk away from it. And a lot of us have just felt this burn of churches that's modeled, they scale beyond relationship. And so they have to use programs and assets and paid staff to do this stuff. And it just doesn't feel real. And it's okay to admit that, but also recognize we need each other. We need faith community. And so if we can scale back to a place of doing faith community and church where we have the relational capacity to do it in a way that is spirit-led, interpersonal, it's just so life-giving. It's worth hanging in there for that journey. It's worth being a part of that. So don't let go of the whole thing just because you've had a hurt season or a bad experience. Like, God still uses his church, and the Spirit still moves among people through relationships.
Incredible. Love it. Anything for you, Emily? You don't have to, by any means.
I don't think so.
Cool. I love it. Well, I was just thinking when we were talking, we got to get a date on the calendar where we can join you guys for your house church on Sunday morning.
Love that.
We'll come drive
Love
up.
Let's do it.
It's been too long. Our kids had a great time last time we did it, so we gotta do it again.
Absolutely, man. We'd love to have you. Let's do it.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on the podcast today, guys. It's such a gift to me, but I know also to our listeners. Just gonna be really greatly encouraged by what you guys shared. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.